Hello, good folks in cyberspace. I'm David Clayton, your host with another GuitarBreakdown.com extravaganza. I don't even know what that means, but I'm glad you guys stopped by for another lesson, and I hope you had a chance to check out the last series of lessons that we just uploaded with our first guest artist, Phil X. He did an amazing job. He pleasured us with his... I shouldn't say it that way. He graced us with his presence, and he pleasured us, I guess, with a few lessons, actually. The first one was the one we just uploaded. We actually have 2 more lessons that are being edited as we speak, and there's a series of questions, a lot of questions that we asked him that we're going to actually upload periodically in the next few weeks. So I hope you guys stick around with that, because he answers a lot of great questions about touring, about playing in general, and just some really cool stuff. So I want to thank Phil again for doing that. It was awesome. And I hope you guys stick around. We have several more artists that are going to do guest lessons. But for this lesson, what we're doing is we are going to break down one of my favorite guitar players. I have many of them, I know, but Blues Saraceno. This is a song called Before the Storm, and it is off of his Never Look Back CD. I think that was his debut CD. Now, to me, he stood out above the rest in the 90s. I believe it was the early 90s when this came out. This was a time when all the shrapnel stuff was coming out, all the really fast alternate picking, sweep picking, just all very heavy guitar-oriented stuff was coming out. And he came out with this stuff that was amazing because his tone was so great. And the thing that was great about him was his... he was focused more on songwriting and melody and phrasing as opposed to just a whole thing of running arpeggios and fast alternate picking stuff, which he has a lot of that stuff, but he just really uses it sparingly, and it's really cool because he just throws it in every once in a while, and it stands out even more. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down what I wanted to do was this arpeggio lick that he does. And again, it's a different way of playing arpeggios. It's not sweep picking. It's not string skipping. It's this cool little sequence way of playing it. And when I started learning this to show you guys, I learned a few measures in front of it and a few measures after it. And then I realized, well, I want to teach that stuff too. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we're going to go over. Really cool stuff that I think you could really incorporate into your playing right away. And it's a lot of kind of food for thought as opposed to, you know, just licks and all this kind of stuff. It's really stuff you can concentrate as concepts and go, wow, I could actually use that in my own playing. So hope you guys enjoy this. I will put a time code in the comment section or the description section below, as always, with the time code and where you could find this audio clip. Also, I'm going to put some links to some of Blues' stuff. And I would suggest picking up this CD if you don't have it, because it is just awesome. And now the problem with Blues at this point is, unfortunately, he's kind of like Dan Huff. He doesn't really play much anymore. He's more of a producer, and he writes stuff for TV and stuff. And I think he still records a little bit, but he doesn't put out CDs anymore as far as solo CDs, which is a shame because I think the community as a whole is really missing out on that stuff. And I know a lot of people still request it for him. I think he gives Skype lessons and things over at his website. So check that out if you want to take some lessons from him. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I'm almost positive he does. So I hope you guys enjoy this lesson, and I will see you in a second. Thanks. Alright, so as I've been known to do in the beginnings of these lessons, I'm going to break down a little bit of the chord progression that's going on here. So that gives you some kind of context or structure to understanding the solo section. Now, this is being played over, it's in the key of E minor, relative major is G major, so there's one sharp and F sharp, everything else is natural. The first chord is this E chord, and it's basically playing your third finger on the 7th fret of the A string and your first finger on the 5th fret of the, on the D string. So 7th fret A string and 5th fret on the D string, and then the rest are open strings. And I think it's actually skipping the B string, so it's playing the other two, the G and the E string open and skipping the B string. So, and now it plays this shape, which is the third finger on the 5th fret of the A string, the second finger on the 4th fret of the D string, an open G string, and the first finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. And that's pretty much like a D major chord, okay, with an 11th in there. Then it moves that down a whole step, so now you have your third finger on the 3rd fret A string, second finger, 2nd fret of the D string, open G string again, and first finger on your first fret of the B string. And that's just a C major chord. So those are the first 3 chords. Then it goes into a section where, again, I'm just trying to give you a foundation of what's going on. I'm not showing you the actual picking, all this and everything. And then it goes into another section where it's which those chords are basically a C, sus9 or sus2, whatever you want to call it. And it's basically playing first fingers on the 1st fret of the A string, third fingers on the 5th fret of the D string, and your pinkies on the 5th fret of the G string, and then you're barring with the rest of your first finger on the 3rd fret of the B and E string. So that's... Then you move that up a whole step to D. So it's the same exact shape, moved up 2 frets. And then you move that up again 2 more frets to E. But instead of going to that E string, you're going to go from the 7th fret of the B string to the 8th fret of the B string. So that's... Then he goes into this thing where he goes... Essentially that. So it's just going from a G bar chord to an F sharp to an F to an E. So it's chromatically walking down from 3rd fret, 2nd fret, 1st fret, open. And when he gets to that, it actually goes into this riff of... And we'll get into that in a second. Alright, so now let's get into the solo section. Where I started this solo, it bends the 4th fret of the D string up and down a half step, and then it goes to the 2nd fret of the D string. So, and then it goes on the 5th fret of the A string, bends up a whole step and back down. So that whole thing is... And there, what it's doing, it's sliding up from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret on the D string. Then it goes to the 5th fret of the A string, and then an open string on the E string. So that whole thing is... So the whole thing together is... Then after that, it does 2 harmonics on both on the 7th fret of the E and the A string. And it gives a little vibrato after the harmonics, and then it kind of slowly dives down. So the whole thing is this. Then it starts with a little bit of a slide, if you want to get into little details. After it bends that down, it slides just a little bit, and then it gets into this little riff. And the riff is the 9th fret of the D string to the 9th, 11th, and 12th on the G string. So that's... And then it hits that 12th fret twice. And on the second one, it gives a bit of a pinch harmonic. So the whole thing is this. And each time it slides into this phrase, it's sliding into that first note. Then it slides out of it and slides back into it. So the second time it does that phrase, it goes from the 9th fret on the D string to the 9th, 11th, 12th again on the G string. But then it goes over to the 12th fret of the B string and back to the 12th fret of the G string, and it gives another harmonic there. So... And actually what it does is it goes down from that 12th fret on the B string to the 12th fret of the G string and the pinch harmonics on the 11th fret of the G string. And then it slides off. So the whole thing is... So then after it does that pinch harmonic on the 11th fret, it slides off, goes back into that riff one more time, but the way it was played the first time, which is 9th fret of the D string, then 9, 11, 12, and 12 again with the pinch harmonic on the G string. So that whole little section there is... And then it slides back off. Now if you notice too, a few things. One, I think when Blues was playing this, I believe he was using dual humbucker guitar, so these single coils are a little thin. I like the tone I'm getting out of this, but it's definitely not exactly what's on the CD. And if you notice, there's a lot of palm muting going on. It's not just an open riff like this. It's really articulated by palm muting right at the bridge. So you have... Right, and then that palm mute comes off to get that pinch harmonic. So just a little technique-y kind of thing. Now what happens after that is the part that I really want to teach, which is really cool. Now I like everything that's been going on so far because it's really melodic and really phrase-oriented. Again, if we do it one more time, you have... All that's really nice melodic kind of phrasing with some bends and stuff. And then you have this cool lick, which is really like repeating a melody, but the second time you do it a little different, and then you go back and repeat that melody. So it's very vocalist, you know, singing 3 notes, 2 or 3 notes, and then repeating it in a slightly different way. Now what happens here is that cool little arpeggio sequence that I was talking about. What he does is before he gets into it, he kind of gets this little scrape going, and then it's you could hear just a little bit of scraping going on. So let me play it and see if I can get it. So it's really one scrape, pretty much, 1 or 2 scrapes on all the strings, and then it's 2 quick scrapes on a muted E string. And then he does this little trill, which is the 5th fret to the 7, 5, 3, all on the E string. So, and it's really like an 8th note with an 8th note triplet thing, or a 16th note triplet. So it's filling the space of a quarter note. You have your first 8th note, and your second 8th note is this 16th note triplet. So, okay, so the whole thing is, now it goes into the sequence part, which is, so instead of running down that arpeggio, just going, right, he does this little sequence of, and so what that is after that one note, then the triplet, it goes back to the 5th fret of the E string, to the 7th fret of the B string, then the 3rd fret of the E string, then he goes down the arpeggio from the 5th fret of the B string to the 4th fret of the G string to the 5th fret of the D string, 7th fret of the A string to the 5th fret of the A string. So that whole thing is, now everything else after that triplet are 16th notes. So you have, and then it resolves on this 2nd fret of the G string, or you could play it on the, to get a little thicker sound, you can play it on the D string, 7th fret. So I'm going to try that whole thing. So.